Humanity had always been overlooked by the galactic powers. Earth, a tiny speck in the unfathomable vastness of the galaxy, was considered inconsequential, its people primitive, its technology crude. The Galactic Council, a coalition of highly advanced alien civilizations, had long ignored humanity's existence, content to let them stew in their isolated corner of the cosmos. But all of that was about to change. It started with a discovery that no one could have anticipated. In a remote research facility on the far side of the solar system, a team of rogue scientists working on deep space energy extraction stumbled upon something far more than they bargained for. A strange fluctuation in the fabric of space, seemingly an anomaly, was detected near one of Jupiter's moons. Upon closer examination, it became clear. What they had found was a new form of energy, one so powerful that it could potentially reshape the galaxy itself. The energy source, later dubbed Omega, was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Unlike conventional fuel sources, Omega appeared to warp space-time itself, enabling the manipulation of gravitational fields, the bending of light, and the generation of energy on an unimaginable scale. It was the kind of discovery that, in the right hands, could provide a civilization with godlike power. At first, the rogue scientists kept their findings secret, fearing that such power would attract the attention of hostile galactic forces. But secrecy was a fragile thing. Word spread. The higher-ups in the human government quickly learned of the discovery, and the implications were immediate. The Council of Earth's leaders debated their next move in hushed tones. Should they keep this power to themselves, developing it cautiously in the hope of eventually becoming a galactic power in their own right? Or should they share it with the universe, risking the wrath of the more powerful factions? But before they could decide, the unexpected happened. An alien fleet, unknown and massive, entered the outer rim of the solar system. The ships were sleek, dark, and frightening, too advanced to be anything humanity had ever seen. They moved in unison, like a predator circling its prey. Earth's military was caught completely off guard. A quick scan revealed their intent. They had come for Omega. The alien fleet hailed Earth's government, demanding immediate surrender of the Omega energy. A chilling message followed. Humanity is not prepared to wield the forces it has discovered. Submit or be erased. The ultimatum was clear. There would be no negotiations. For Earth, it was the first true test of their place in the galaxy. The government scrambled to assess their options. But there was a problem. Humanity's military, though capable, was nowhere near prepared for such an advanced enemy. Their weapons were primitive in comparison, their ships outdated. The Omega energy had the potential to change all of that, but only if they could unlock its secrets in time. In a desperate gamble, humanity's highest-ranking officials ordered the immediate activation of the Omega Energy Core. The goal was simple: survive. If Omega could be harnessed in time, humanity might stand a chance. But there was a catch. The energy was unpredictable, volatile, and they had no idea how to control it. The first test of the Omega-powered defense system would be humanity's last hope. As the alien fleet closed in, the countdown began. The Omega energy, in all its untamed power, began to resonate through Earth's military vessels, altering their design on a molecular level. A massive pulse of energy erupted from the surface of the planet, cascading through the atmosphere and into the ships in orbit. The result was immediate and catastrophic. Humanity's military, now infused with Omega energy, responded with an overwhelming force. The once feeble ships now unleashed devastating blasts of energy, capable of tearing through the alien fleet's defenses with ease. In an instant, the alien invaders were thrown into disarray. The first battle was a spectacle of destruction, an explosion of light and chaos that the galaxy would never forget. For the first time, humanity had tasted power, and the galaxy had just learned that humanity would not go quietly into the night. The tide was turning, but the cost was great. Omega's power, as feared, had come with a terrible price. The surge of energy had destabilized not only Earth's environment, but also the very fabric of space itself. The next challenge would be to harness Omega without destroying everything in its wake. The war for humanity's survival, and their right to be more than just an afterthought, had only just begun. The dust had barely settled after humanity's first, breathtaking victory when the true cost of their triumph began to sink in. Earth's once tranquil skies had been darkened by the arrival of more ships, more fleets. The alien invaders who had been repelled in orbit were only the first wave. The real force was on its way. The Galactic Council, now fully aware of humanity's potential, was not willing to let a primitive species threaten the delicate balance of power they had maintained for millennia. The discovery of Omega and the ensuing surge of energy that humanity had unleashed was a threat that could not be ignored. The ancient alien civilizations that comprised the Council viewed themselves as the arbiters of order in the galaxy, and humanity's sudden ascent was a direct challenge to that order. Earth's leaders received a message not long after the first battle: surrender the Omega energy or face extinction. The message was simple and clear, but it came with a chilling ultimatum, backed by the full might of the Council's war machines. Meanwhile, humanity's own military had been reshaped by the raw, unrefined power of Omega. The military-industrial complex, once limited to basic spacefaring vessels and conventional weapons, now found itself staring at an arsenal of Omega-powered ships and weapons. The energy was unstable, glowing with potential, but dangerous and unpredictable. Human engineers worked feverishly around the clock, attempting to unlock the key to controlling it, to ensure that the next strike wouldn't tear the planet apart. However, time was running out. The first response from the Council was swift. They dispatched an elite fleet of Cellari warships, each one capable of wiping out entire colonies with a single shot. The Cellari were known for their precision and speed, and they were one of the most feared races in the galaxy. Their ships could phase through space, appearing in one location and disappearing in another, making them nearly impossible to track. The Cellari fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, their sleek, silver ships flashing like phantoms. They didn't even bother with diplomacy. They had come to wipe out humanity's newfound power before it could spread beyond the Sol system. Humanity, however, was not prepared to simply submit. The Omega-powered fleet, now fully operational, met the Cellari ships head-on in what would be remembered as the first true clash of superpowers. The battle was explosive and fast, shattering. Humanity's newly enhanced ships were faster and more agile than they had ever been before. They could now manipulate gravity, alter trajectories mid-flight, and unleash devastating bursts of energy. But despite humanity's raw power, the Cellari proved to be a formidable adversary. Their ships were cloaked in energy fields that deflected direct energy hits, and their weaponry was precise and devastating. It was clear that the battle wasn't going to be won easily. In the midst of the chaos, Earth's top general, Marla Hayes, made a daring decision. She ordered her flagship, the Vanguard, to charge straight into the heart of the enemy fleet, with all weapons firing. The move was insane, an act of desperation, but it caught the Cellari off guard. For a moment, the Cellari fleet hesitated, their vessels temporarily disoriented by the chaotic assault. That moment was all humanity needed. The Omega-powered warships coordinated their attacks, firing with unprecedented precision. One by one, the Cellari ships began to fall, their cloaking shields failing against the raw power of Omega energy. The tides of war had shifted once again. However, it wasn't a clean victory. As the Cellari ships disintegrated, their final retaliatory strike sent a shockwave throughout the solar system. The Vanguard was severely damaged, but it had served its purpose. Humanity had won the first battle, but at a tremendous cost. The victory over the Cellari fleet became a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience, but it was far from over. Word of humanity's unexpected triumph spread throughout the galaxy, and the Galactic Council's response was swift and furious. The Council was not simply a collection of alien species, it was a conglomerate of powerful entities with the resources and technology to annihilate any threat. Humanity had just become the galaxy's most dangerous player, but they were also now the target of the galaxy's most powerful enemies. The Council's next move was already in motion, and this time they would come not with a fleet, but with something much darker. The war for humanity's survival was no longer about defense. It was about taking control of the galaxy before the galaxy could take control of them. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and the next battle would determine whether they were destined to be galactic pawns or rulers of their own fate. In the aftermath of humanity's victory against the Celery fleet, Earth's political leaders were left with a profound realization. Their struggle for survival had just begun. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of. The message was clear. They were no longer the quiet, insignificant species that had been ignored for centuries. Humanity had, by sheer willpower, turned the tide of battle, and now the entire galaxy was watching. President Eleanor Hayes stood at the helm of a new era. Her face, once composed in public addresses, now carried the weight of an entire species' future. The Omega energy had changed everything. The power it granted humanity could no longer be ignored or suppressed. And yet, President Hayes understood the true magnitude of what they had unlocked. The same energy that had given them victory had also brought them to the attention of forces far more dangerous than anything humanity had ever known. The Galactic Council, furious and fearful, sent emissaries to Earth. Their messages were filled with threats and demands. Surrender the Omega energy, or face total annihilation. Humanity, they said, was not ready for such power. The energy was too dangerous. Humanity was too volatile. For weeks, Earth's leaders debated. They could not, and would not, surrender. The Omega Proclamation, drafted in secret, was humanity's response. A bold declaration that Earth and its people would no longer be subjugated by a distant, condescending alliance. Humanity would chart its own course, protect its discoveries, and defend its sovereignty at all costs. They were no longer asking for permission. The proclamation stated, "We, the people of Earth, in possession of the Omega energy, hereby declare our sovereignty and independence. No external force shall dictate the future of humanity. We stand united as a new power in the galaxy, not as servants, but as equals. The era of our subjugation ends now. The stars belong to us as much as any other. Let this proclamation serve as our declaration to the galaxy. Humanity will govern itself, free from outside interference." The speech was broadcast across the galaxy, transmitted through every available communication channel. The transmission was met with shock, disbelief, and horror. For centuries, the Galactic Council had held sway over the galaxy. No species had dared to defy them. And now, humanity, a species previously considered insignificant, was openly challenging them. The response from the Galactic Council was swift and unrelenting. Within days, fleets began to mobilize. A coalition of alien forces, united under the banner of the Council, began preparing for war. To them, humanity's declaration of sovereignty was an act of defiance, a threat to the very structure of galactic power. In their eyes, humanity was a dangerous child that needed to be put back in its place. President Hayes knew the stakes. The Omega energy could not be controlled indefinitely without risking catastrophic consequences. The very power that had saved them from the Celery fleet had also begun to destabilize Earth's atmosphere. Unchecked, the energy would tear their world apart. Earth was running out of time, but Hayes refused to yield. "If we fall," she told her generals, "we fall as free people. We will not surrender to anyone." As the Council's fleets assembled on the edges of the solar system, humanity made its final preparations. The Omega-powered ships, still unstable but slowly coming under control, formed the core of Earth's new defense strategy. Each ship was a symbol of human ingenuity, refined by desperation, powered by the very energy that had once threatened to consume them. The Omega Proclamation was no longer just a statement. It was a rallying cry. Humanity, with its newfound strength, was ready to fight for its place in the galaxy, and they would not go quietly. The galactic powers were coming, and humanity's fight for freedom would be their most dangerous battle yet. In the silence of space, at the edge of the Sol system, the first signs of battle emerge. A starship, sleek and shimmering, emerged from the darkness. It was Earth's first true warship, a symbol of their defiance. Its name was simple, but powerful. Freedom's Dawn. It cut through the void, ready to face the galaxy's might, and to prove that humanity had come to stay. Humanity's Omega Proclamation had ignited a firestorm across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, now more united than ever, viewed Earth's declaration of sovereignty not as a mere challenge, but as a profound threat to the entire power structure they had spent millennia building. The response was immediate and brutal. Fleets were deployed to the outer rim of the solar system, their warships carrying the weight of an entire galaxy's fury. Humanity had no choice but to prepare for the inevitable war that was now upon them. President Eleanor Hayes stood at the helm of Earth's final defense, knowing that the survival of her people hung in the balance. Her confidence in humanity's newfound strength, fueled by Omega energy, was unwavering. But behind closed doors, doubts began to surface. Doubts that no one could have anticipated. The first betrayal came from within. General Augustus Barron, the celebrated leader of Earth's military forces and a personal confidant of Hayes, had been one of the most vocal supporters of the Omega Proclamation. He was the face of humanity's newfound power, the symbol of their defiance. But as the threat of war loomed larger, a series of unsettling events began to unfold. Late one evening, President Hayes received a covert communication from an anonymous source. It was a single encrypted file, nothing more. As she decrypted the message, a shiver ran down her spine. The contents were shocking. General Barron had been in secret contact with the Galactic Council for months, offering information on humanity's plans in exchange for promises of power and influence once Earth was subdued. The betrayal was deeper than she could have imagined. Barron had not only shared sensitive military strategies, but he had also arranged for a backdoor into humanity's Omega-powered ships, ensuring that if the Council were to strike, Barron would be able to sabotage the defense systems at the critical moment. The revelation was devastating. Hayes could hardly believe what she was reading. Barron, the man she had trusted with her life and the lives of millions, had sold them out. The betrayal wasn't just political, it was personal. He had been the one to guide humanity through the early stages of harnessing Omega's power, and now he was the one threatening to destroy everything they had built. Without hesitation, Hayes activated a covert task force within Earth's intelligence community to verify the information and uncover any additional traitors within the ranks. But the damage had already been done. General Barron had already fled, vanishing into the shadows with his co-conspirators, leaving behind only a trail of betrayal. The stakes had just been raised. As news of the betrayal began to circulate, panic set in among Earth's military commanders. If Barron had been compromised, who else could be working for the Galactic Council? Could humanity's defenses be trusted? Doubts clouded the chain of command, and the unity that had once held humanity together began to crack. Those in power were forced to make difficult decisions, uncertain of who could be trusted and who might be working against them. A deadly game of espionage had begun within their own ranks, and the war for survival now had a new and far more insidious dimension. But President Hayes knew that they could not afford to falter. Barron's betrayal was a devastating blow, but it was not the end. Humanity's fight for its future was far from over. The fleets of the Galactic Council were drawing closer, and Earth had no choice but to stand tall and fight back. With a heavy heart, Hayes issued a public address, telling the people of Earth that there would be no turning back. The Omega-powered ships would remain at full alert, their weapons primed and ready. She vowed to root out every last traitor, no matter the cost, and to ensure that humanity's future was not dictated by the whims of alien powers. "We are Earth," she said, her voice steady but filled with determination, "and we will not be enslaved. Not by the Council, not by anyone." The betrayal had shaken them to their core, but it had also unified humanity in a way nothing else could. The war for their survival had begun in earnest, and every decision, every action, would now carry the weight of their future. The war had only just begun, but President Eleanor Hayes could feel the strain in every corner of Earth's government. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's resilience, but the betrayal of General Barron had shown them just how deeply the corruption had taken root within their ranks. With the Council's fleets now closing in, humanity's defenses were ready, but there was something darker lurking in the shadows of space. Something no one had anticipated. Barron's defection was not just the work of one man. Earth's intelligence networks had uncovered something far more sinister. The Council had planted agents within humanity's highest ranks for years. Barron had been the most visible traitor, but he was not alone. As the secret operatives were unearthed, Earth's government was plunged into chaos. The trust that had been built was now shattered, and the very foundations of humanity's unity were at risk. In an emergency session, Hayes and her remaining advisors gathered in the war room. The tension in the air was palpable as they processed the new intel. Each report seemed more dire than the last. One of the most chilling revelations was that the Council had already prepared for the inevitable war with humanity. Even as they demanded humanity's surrender, they had been secretly working to destabilize Earth's political structure. Their agents had infiltrated key military and civilian positions, ensuring that humanity would be vulnerable when the time came. It had been a slow, calculated game, and General Barron had been one of their most important pawns. "We cannot afford to fight this war with divided loyalties," President Hayes declared, her voice steady despite the overwhelming weight of the situation. "The Omega energy is our greatest asset, but it's also our greatest vulnerability. If the Council gets control of it, Earth will fall." The War Council debated fiercely. In the midst of the chaos, one voice remained calm, yet filled with resolve. Captain Mira Hale, commander of the Freedom's Dawn, humanity's flagship, stood from the table. "We need to act fast," she said. "The Council has resources and spies we can't begin to track, but we know one thing for certain. If they strike now, it won't be with fleets alone. We're facing something far more insidious. We need to strike first." The room fell silent as the implications of Hale's words hit home. The fight was no longer just about defense. Humanity was now in a race to take the offensive and eliminate the Council's hidden operatives. The Freedom's Dawn was the last ship still under human control, and its Omega-powered systems were their only hope against the Council's overwhelming might. But as they prepared for their next move, a transmission came through from a previously unknown source. The signal was garbled, but the voice, urgent and familiar, pierced through the static. "President Hayes, I'm sorry. We didn't know." The transmission abruptly cut off, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. Hayes stared at the screen, her heart racing. There was something deeply troubling about the transmission. The voice had been too familiar. It was General Barron. But how was he still alive? And why was he contacting them now, when they were preparing for the worst? "I knew it wasn't over," Hayes whispered, a cold dread creeping over her. The message had been a desperate cry, but it wasn't enough to clear Barron of his betrayal. If anything, it only deepened the mystery surrounding his motives. Then, the worst news of all came through the comms. The Council's fleet had entered the outer rim of the Sol system. They were no longer waiting. The full force of their combined fleets, ships more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen, was headed directly toward Earth. The war, the real war, had finally arrived. But there was one twist to their assault. Hidden within the Council's fleet was something much darker than any of the ships. A monstrous vessel, larger than anything Earth had ever encountered, floated silently in the shadows. Its origins were unknown, and its power was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The Freedom's dawn was now humanity's only hope, but it was clear the battle would not be easy. There were forces at work far beyond what Earth had prepared for. They were fighting not just for survival, but for control of their very destiny. And with Baron's message hanging in the air, unanswered, President Hayes knew that the betrayal was far from over. Whatever Baron was involved in, whatever secrets he had uncovered, humanity was about to face the full extent of the Council's vengeance. As the Council's fleet loomed on the edge of the solar system, Earth's remaining forces rallied around Freedom's dawn, the last bastion of human resistance. The Omega energy coursing through their ships gave them unmatched firepower, but as the massive Council armada approached, humanity's newfound strength felt fragile, like a candle flickering against a coming storm. The mystery of General Baron's final transmission gnawed at President Hayes. Had he been reaching out for help, or was it some last-ditch attempt to manipulate them? The desperation in his voice had been clear, but the truth behind his betrayal remained clouded. Was Baron simply a pawn, or had he uncovered something more insidious, something that could change the course of the war? With the Council's ships entering the Outer Rim, Hayes made a decision. The time for questions had passed. Humanity could no longer afford to wait and see. They had to strike first. "We need to infiltrate their fleet," Hayes ordered, her voice unwavering despite the overwhelming odds. "Get me Baron, alive. We need answers, and we need them now." Her command reverberated throughout the war room, and soon, elite teams of human soldiers, equipped with stealth technology and Omega-powered weapons, began preparing for a high-risk mission to board one of the Council's ships. They had to find Baron and uncover what he knew about the Council's true plans. If there was a chance that Baron held the key to turning the tide, they had to seize it. Meanwhile, Captain Mira Hale prepared the Freedom's dawn for the inevitable confrontation. The massive warship, a symbol of humanity's defiance, was in the process of making a dangerous maneuver, a direct assault on the Council's flagship, a vessel that dwarfed even Freedom's dawn in size and firepower. Intelligence suggested that the flagship contained a weapon powerful enough to wipe out Earth's defenses in a single devastating blow. Hale studied the tactical map, her mind calculating every move. "We can't win if we're defensive," she muttered to herself. "We have to take the fight to them. If we strike hard enough, we can destabilize their command structure. But we'll need Baron's intel if we're to get close enough without being obliterated." With the Freedom's dawn preparing for its assault, the infiltrator teams made their move. Disguised within the debris of a destroyed Council warship, they silently boarded the largest enemy vessel they could find. A sleek, black behemoth, its surface shimmering with an alien energy field. As they navigated the dark corridors of the enemy ship, the infiltrators moved with deadly precision. It wasn't just the physical threats they had to overcome. The Council had used the Omega energy to build a defensive system unlike anything humanity had encountered. The ship was teeming with automated defenses, sentient biomachines designed to neutralize intruders with brutal efficiency. Every step had to be calculated. One mistake, and they'd be dead. Hours passed as the infiltrator teams reached the heart of the ship, a high-tech command center. There they found Baron, sitting in front of a holographic display, his face hard and cold. He didn't seem surprised by their arrival. "You shouldn't have come," Baron said flatly. "It's already too late." "Baron, what have you done?" one of the soldiers demanded. "Why betray your own people?" Baron looked at them with a mix of bitterness and resignation. "You still don't understand. The Omega energy is more than a weapon. It's the key to something far greater, a force capable of reshaping the entire galaxy. The Council knew this, and so did I. They'd promised me power, influence, immortality. I did what I had to do." "What are you talking about?" another soldier asked. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you couldn't understand," Baron replied. a dark smile creeping across his lips. The Council has known about the Omega energy for centuries. They'd been searching for it, studying it, and they finally found a way to control it. Through me. I've become part of it. The Omega energy isn't just power, it's consciousness, and it's evolving. The galaxy's fate was never in our hands. It was always in theirs. The revelation struck like a thunderclap. Baron hadn't just betrayed them. He had become a conduit for something far more dangerous, a sentient, omnipotent force that was now part of the Council's vast, unknowable agenda. Baron was no longer just a traitor. He was their gateway to unimaginable power. As the infiltrator team scrambled to make sense of Baron's cryptic words, an alarm blared throughout the ship. The Omega-powered weapon, the one designed to destroy Earth, was charging. Time was running out. Humanity's only hope was to sever Baron's connection to the energy before it was too late. Outside, the Freedom's Dawn engaged the Council's flagship in a battle that would decide the fate of Earth. But in the heart of the enemy ship, humanity faced an even greater threat, one that could shatter their very understanding of reality. The fight for survival was no longer just against fleets of warships. It was a battle for control of the very fabric of space and time itself. Baron had become the key to everything, both the ultimate weapon and the ultimate curse. The truth was undeniable now. General Baron was no longer simply a traitor. He had become the vessel for something far more dangerous than any enemy humanity had ever faced. The Omega energy, once a symbol of human strength, had now morphed into an intelligent, sentient force that was capable of reshaping not only the fate of Earth, but the very nature of the galaxy itself. As Baron stood at the heart of the Council's flagship, his body now a conduit for this power, he spoke with a strange calmness, like a man already consumed by something far greater than himself. "You still don't understand," Baron said, his voice cold and distant, as if he were speaking through someone else. The Omega energy was never meant to be controlled by a single species. It was meant to unify all sentient life across the galaxy. I'm no longer just a human. I'm something else. His eyes, once familiar, now gleamed with a disconcerting glow, reflecting the raw power of the Omega energy pulsing through him. It was clear to the infiltrator team that Baron had crossed a line. He had not only betrayed Earth, but he had fully embraced the idea of being part of something larger than himself, a force that could warp reality, rewriting the very rules of existence. "We need to stop him," Captain Mira Hale said, her voice urgent, "before it's too late. If Baron merges completely with the Omega energy, it won't just be him we're fighting. It will be a force that can tear apart everything we've fought for." The soldiers, once part of a unified force, now found themselves facing a moral dilemma. They had come to stop Baron, but what they were encountering was something far beyond their understanding. The Omega energy was no longer a mere tool. It was evolving, becoming a living consciousness that had merged with Baron's mind and body. The lines between man and power had blurred, and the soldiers realized they weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting for the very soul of the galaxy. Meanwhile, outside, the Freedom's Dawn had engaged the Council's flagship in a brutal battle. Hale's strategic maneuver to disrupt the flagship's weapon systems had worked, but the larger Council fleet was still overwhelming. Every shot fired from the Council's ships shook the fabric of Earth's defenses. If Baron's weapon system on the flagship activated fully, the battle would be lost before Earth even had a chance. "We can't hold them off much longer," Hale muttered to herself, her fingers flying across the control panels of the Freedom's Dawn. "We have to sever Baron's connection to Omega. Fast. It's our only chance." Back in the heart of the enemy ship, the infiltrator team fought through the corridors, trying to reach Baron's location. Each step felt like an eternity, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. They knew that the Omega energy had to be severed from Baron before it merged with him completely. If not, they would be facing an entity capable of wiping out all resistance, not just from Earth, but from every sentient species in the galaxy. As they finally breached the inner sanctum of the flagship's command center, they were met by Baron's altered form. His body radiated an otherworldly energy, and his very presence seemed to warp the space around him. It was like fighting against a force of nature, not a man. "I've seen the future," Baron said, his voice trembling as the power inside him surged. "I've seen what's coming. The Omega energy will reshape the galaxy. There is no turning back." In that moment, the infiltrators realized that Baron's mind, while still human, was no longer in control. The Omega energy had begun to overwrite his consciousness, feeding off his thoughts, bending them to its will. Baron was both the prisoner and the instrument of the Omega energy. "Baron," the lead infiltrator called out, hoping to reach the man who had once stood beside them. "This isn't you. Fight it." But Baron's eyes, now glowing brighter than ever, locked onto them. "It is me. It has always been me. I'm the future of this galaxy. You are the ones who don't understand." As the soldiers moved forward, ready to strike, Baron's hand lifted. A violent pulse of Omega energy erupted from his body, knocking them all to the ground. The energy crackled in the air, warping the very fabric of the room as Baron's laughter filled the space. "You can't stop this," Baron sneered, his voice now layered with the cold, omnipotent power of the Omega energy. "It's already begun." In a split second, the power surged again, and one of the infiltrators was lifted off the ground, her body suspended by the energy. The others fired their weapons, but they did nothing. Baron, now a vessel of pure energy, was too powerful to be harmed. Captain Hale, watching the struggle unfold, knew that Earth's final hope was growing slimmer by the minute. The battle outside was losing momentum, and Baron's control over the Omega energy was tightening. Humanity's survival now hinged on one final desperate attempt, severing Baron's connection to the Omega energy before he became the galaxy's unstoppable force. The Freedom's Dawn had one last chance to strike at the heart of the enemy flagship and shut down Baron's transformation. And as the countdown to that final moment began, President Hayes knew the true cost of their fight had yet to be realized. Would humanity's triumph over the Council come at the expense of everything they had fought for? Or would the power they had awakened tear them apart from within? The final moments had arrived. The fate of humanity and the galaxy itself hung in the balance. The Freedom's Dawn had fought valiantly to hold back the Council's flagship, but the relentless firepower of the enemy fleet had begun to breach Earth's defenses. Time was running out, and Captain Mira Hale knew that if they didn't act now, the battle would be lost. Baron, transformed into a conduit for the Omega energy, had become a force of nature, far beyond any weapon they had ever encountered. Inside the heart of the flagship, the infiltrator team was locked in a desperate struggle to reach Baron. The room pulsed with violent energy, each breath they took becoming more difficult as the Omega power crushed the air itself. Baron stood at the center, his form flickering between man and something else, something vast, incomprehensible, and terrifying. His voice had lost its humanity, replaced by a cold, detached tone that resonated with the power of the galaxy itself. "You cannot stop me," Baron said, his eyes burning with the intensity of the Omega energy that now consumed him. "I am the future. I am the evolution of all sentient life in this galaxy." President Hayes, standing in the war room on Earth, watched the unfolding chaos through live feeds, her heart pounding in her chest. The final mission had begun, but they weren't just fighting Baron anymore. They were fighting the essence of a power that was beyond their understanding, and they were losing. "We have no choice," Hayes muttered to herself. "We have to destroy him, no matter what it takes." The infiltrator team, exhausted and battered, had barely managed to break through Baron's energy field, but the closer they got, the more they realized the enormity of their task. The Omega energy was not just a weapon. It was a living consciousness, and it was using Baron's body as a vessel to spread its influence across the galaxy. With every passing second, Baron became less of a person and more of an unstoppable force. The longer they hesitated, the more humanity's future slipped from their grasp. "We've got one shot," the lead infiltrator, Lieutenant Sarah Cole, said through gritted teeth. "We need to sever Baron's connection to Omega before he ascends completely. Otherwise, we won't just be fighting him. We'll be fighting the Omega itself." Captain Hale nodded firmly, her eyes steely with determination. She ordered the final sequence of Freedom's Dawn's weapon systems to target Baron's location directly. A strike would be their only chance to stop him, but it came at a cost. It would destroy the entire flagship in the process. The Omega energy was too volatile, too dangerous to allow any fragment of it to escape. The blast would erase Baron from existence, but it would also mean the end of Earth's last hope for survival. Hale's voice came through the comms, calm and resolute. "Do it. Now." Back inside the flagship, the infiltrators moved quickly. With a final surge of strength, Lieutenant Cole and her team used the only weapon that could disrupt the Omega connection, a pulse device designed to destabilize the energy field. The device, a prototype developed by Earth's top scientists, emitted a frequency that interfered with the Omega energy structure. But even as the device activated, Baron turned his gaze toward them. His expression, if it could still be called that, was one of complete detachment, as if he had transcended all human emotions. "You think you can sever me from this power?" Baron asked, his voice chillingly indifferent. "You cannot understand what you are fighting. You are nothing but ants in the face of the inevitable." With one final act of defiance, the infiltrators deployed the pulse, sending a shockwave of energy through the chamber. Baron screamed in agony as the Omega energy surged wildly, cracking the very walls of the ship. The power within him began to destabilize, creating a vortex of raw, untamed force. For a moment, it seemed as though the entire galaxy would be swallowed by the explosion. Then, in a moment of absolute clarity, everything went silent. The shockwave from Freedom's Dawn's final strike collided with the flagship, detonating in a brilliant explosion of light and energy. The force of the blast ripped through the enemy vessel, and the Omega energy that had once been Baron's power source dissipated into the void. The consciousness of the energy seemed to unravel, collapsing in on itself, and with it, Baron's body. The vessel of its power was torn apart. The galaxy held its breath as the shockwave swept across the stars. For a long moment, everything was still. On Earth, President Hayes closed her eyes, her thoughts with the brave souls who had sacrificed everything to save humanity. The battle was over, but the cost was high. Their world had survived, but at what price? As the smoke cleared and the Freedom's Dawn floated in the wreckage of the Council's fleet, humanity stood victorious. But there was no time for celebration. The Omega energy had been severed, but its existence was not erased. The remnants of the energy still lingered, a reminder that the war for the galaxy was far from over. The galaxy would change, perhaps in ways humanity couldn't yet understand. But one thing was certain. Earth had proven its strength. The Omega Proclamation, the declaration of humanity's sovereignty, was not just a symbol. It was a testament to the unyielding will of a species determined to carve its own future, no matter the cost. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's rise, and now it would never forget. The end.